Hello, my name is Ruth Naismith, and in this Attends presentation, I'm looking forward to providing information about the 5 types of incontinence, product selection, application and fit, along with some hints and tips. And finally, I'll leave you with my contact information so I can answer any questions that arise in future. You'll notice that I'm combining the first 2 categories, types of incontinence and product selection. But you may ask, why are you talking about types of incontinence? Good question. It's because this knowledge guides us and is key to selecting the correct product. The 5 types of incontinence are stress, urge, overflow, functional, and total. Let's start now with the most known about and perhaps the most common type of incontinence, stress incontinence. Stress incontinence is when urine leaks when pressure is applied to the bladder. Recently, I was listening to an Instagram reel, and a group of young adults were exuberantly laughing, and one suddenly and loudly exclaimed, "I'm going to pee my pants!" I have no idea what that Instagram reel was about, but what stood out in my mind is the fact that even young, healthy adults recognize and experience the effects of stress incontinence. The emojis I've selected highlight the common causes. Laughing, coughing, sneezing, exercise, and lifting may trigger a small sudden leak. Many struggle with stress incontinence during a particular season of life, such as childbirth, after a gynecological or prostate surgery, or during perimenopause or menopause. For this type of incontinence, a small liner is usually adequate and will contain the bladder leakage. Liners are available in a variety of sizes and absorbencies, from quite light to ultimate absorbency. There is a size for everyone struggling with stress incontinence. Male guards also prove helpful for this type of light incontinence. They are a triangular shaped pad that looks like a jock, similar to what is worn for protection while men play sports. I've also included protective underwear in this category. People love their protective underwear as it provides a level of physical protection along with that secure feeling of elasticized underwear. Now let's move on to our second category, urge incontinence. Urge incontinence is the sudden, intense urge to urinate followed by an involuntary loss of urine. Frequency and urgency are key words that come to mind when we discuss urge incontinence. When that urge to void hits, there often isn't time to get to the restroom. I'm thinking of a relative of mine. She was about 92, living alone in her own home, and even though it was only a few steps to the bathroom, she recounted the horrors in a whisper to me, the horrors of the previous night. After feeling the urge to go, she got up as quickly as she could and made her way to the bathroom, which was only a short distance away. However, before she arrived, she had an accident. The floor was a wet mess. You can see my illustration showing the toilet and the mess that my poor relative experienced. She had to get down on her hands and knees in the middle of the night. What stress! And she was certainly at a risk for falls. With urge incontinence, the volume of output can be quite significant. It's a gush. The liners, male guard, or protective underwear mentioned for stress incontinence may now be inadequate for this new level and force of output. This is why I've placed a caution symbol over the protective underwear image. Too often I hear about individuals changing their products many times a day. They're putting themselves at risk for falls. They lack confidence as they can't venture too far from the facilities, just in case. And there's often a level of pain or discomfort felt as they undress and redress after putting on yet another protective underwear. And of course, far too much time is spent in the restroom. Shape pads are ideal for urge incontinence. They are a wonderful and convenient product, and to my way of thinking, underutilized. They are available in 3 levels of absorbency. They are like a brief, but without the stigma often associated with wearing a brief. Once an adult, twice a child is something I've heard quoted from too many. Shape pads are peanut-shaped, like a figure 8, and one end is larger than the other. Females may prefer the smaller end at the front, while men may prefer the opposite way. However, depending on one's anatomy, How they sit, lie down, I suggest positioning it both ways to determine which fits and works best. Shape pads are best held in place with brief-style underwear, perhaps cotton, with a little spandex or elastin for extra holding power. Of course, we don't want tight underwear, just enough tightness to hold the product in place. The insert pad is larger than those listed for stress incontinence, and like the other liners, it too has a sticky adhesive for easy adherence to underwear. This liner may be perfect for those with lighter urge incontinence. Now, before we leave this category, I would like to mention that during the day, even with urge incontinence, an individual may get to the restroom in plenty of time. A lighter pad or even protective underwear may be just fine during the day. However, day and night can look very different. When asleep and relaxed, the sudden urge can be too much, just as in the story of my relative. At night, the shape pad may be a better option. Let's move to our third category, overflow incontinence. I'll only spend a few minutes on this category because you'll be familiar with the products. Overflow incontinence is the frequent or constant dribbling because the bladder is not emptying completely. This may be caused by weak bladder muscles or a blockage. It's more common in men with prostate challenges, for example. And you can see from my diagram the small puddle of urine underneath the bladder. I received a call from a frustrated physician. She was used to telling her, mainly female practice, to do your Kegel exercises and buy a pad or protective underwear if you need it. However, her professional life and her personal life suddenly collided when her father moved into her home. It was only a few months later that her furniture started smelling of urine. You see, her father had overflow incontinence, that dribble. I showed her the same options that we've reviewed for both stress and urge incontinence. I provided samples, and from there, she discussed with her dad the best options for his situation at that time. There is some trial and error involved, and for that reason, Attends offers a sample program. You'll also see on this slide that I've added mesh pants as another category. While I do encourage wearers to use their own brief-style underwear, if they are unavailable or unsuitable, mesh pants are a helpful option and are wash and wear. They may only be needed for a short time until underwear can be purchased. And you can see here that the mesh pants work beautifully with the shape pad as they tuck in and hold the shape pad nice and neatly in place. Now let's move on to our fourth and fifth category, functional and total incontinence. And here you'll see that they are very similar with respect to products. Our fourth type of incontinence is functional incontinence, and it is a physical or cognitive impairment that hinders an individual from getting to the toilet in time. The functional challenge may be arthritis, decreased mobility, or impairment in reasoning. You can see the illustrations on screen. The puzzle represents cognitive challenges such as dementia or perhaps special needs. There's the red pain symbol, and for those with diminished circulation or fine motor capacity challenges, there's the buttons and the zippers, which often prove too difficult for many. For those who cannot undress fast enough or who struggle with pain, a shape pad may be an adequate product. For those with cognitive challenges such as dementia, be aware that there can be a risk of an individual flushing products like shape pads or liners down the toilet, and this is a real plumbing challenge. Tab briefs are easy to put on and they offer excellent coverage and absorbency. They're also available in a wide variety of sizes, from small, a 20-inch circumference, up to 115 inches. It is wonderful to have such a selection of sizes available to us. Now, extended wear briefs, they provide extra absorbency for those with significant incontinence. You may hear them referred to at times as nighttime briefs, but this is a misnomer, as there are many who have significant and forceful output challenges day and night. The extended wear products are available in medium, large, and extra large. Now, stretch briefs span a few sizes, and they are ideal for those who are harder to fit. When I open the product, you'll notice the stretch capacity of the side panels. Now, I remember being called into a hospital to visit a patient that was in such discomfort after every meal when he was wearing a regular brief. You see, he had multiple sclerosis, MS, and his muscle tone was very poor. And after each meal, his stomach bloated, making the brief uncomfortably tight. After recommending the stretch product, I heard feedback that he was thrilled. The pain was gone and it fit him beautifully. It's so wonderful to know that you can solve problems with the correct product. Now, there are 2 sizes of stretch briefs. The medium spans from about 31 to 52 inches, and the large, extra large, is from 40 to 70 inches. These products are terrific and work well for those with both functional and total incontinence. Now, here's a strategy that may prove helpful for some. For those that refuse to give up their beloved protective underwear while being in desperate need of wearing a more absorbent product, here's what I have tried. I will fasten the tabs of the stretch briefs quite loosely, and I'll press them well so they're well adhered, and then that allows the wearer to pull them on as if they were protective underwear. They are receiving the amazing absorbency of the stretch brief, all the while it feels to them and looks like protective underwear. It can be a real win-win situation. Now, shape pads in this situation would be my first suggestion, but if there is bowel incontinence, then the stretch brief could be a great option. For those struggling with leakage, even when wearing a properly sized and fitted brief, the booster pad, which fits nicely into a brief, allows urine to move through its layers, and while traveling through, a percentage of fluid is trapped in the booster pad. Because the booster pad is not plastic-backed, it is not double padding, and it adds that extra amount of absorbency that may be needed in extreme situations. The booster pad can be used in conjunction with any of the briefs. Our 5th and last type of incontinence, total incontinence, looks just like functional with respect to product selection. It is defined as continuous and total loss of urinary control or always leaking urine. The muscle that controls the release of urine, sphincter, no longer works. This is also true for bowels. From the pictures on the slide, you can see that many are wheelchair or even bed-bound, requiring complete care for bladder and bowel incontinence. There is a caveat, and that is for those, say, in hospice care or for the very highly compromised individuals. For these folks, the shape pad is ideal, especially towards end of life. At this point, many are at risk for skin breakdown. They have nutritional challenges, dehydrated. Shape pads allow for more air movement, and they are easier to set in place. When I was a young registered nurse working in long-term care, staff would set a brief in place and leave it open and unfastened for these compromised individuals. Of course, they were turned every few hours to avoid skin breakdown, but now we have shape pads that can replace briefs in this situation. The absorbency is there without the extra fuss of tabs, which really are no longer required. Bowel movements are smaller and just a little bit of smearing, so these really are ideal. Let's spend a few minutes now speaking about application and fit. We have learned about types of incontinence, product selection, and now we're going to put that together because we have now chosen the correct product. Now, before I model and explain application and fit, a reminder that we do want to complete perineal care each and every time a product is changed. It's also important that when we open a product, we do so with care. We don't want to snap or flick the brief, as that will dislodge the placement of materials which are in vital positions for absorbency. The other point I'd like to raise is that we do like to fold the brief lengthwise because that releases the inner leg cuffs, which curve nicely around the body, around the inner thigh, and that helps to capture and contain fluid and feces. So as you can see, I am now wearing a brief, and it looks okay. I should mention, though, that there should be about a finger's width of space between the product and the inner thigh. And on me here, there's actually about a 3 or 4 inch gap between my perineum and the product. And this is ample space for urine to find its way out. The brief must fit up close and personal. The closer the product is to the perineum, the better the absorption and containment. A bigger brief is not better. It will leak. It will gape. Yes, there's more fabric for easier application, but the result is a looser, sloppier fit, as you can see here at the back, and that too will encourage leakage. With the correct size, fitted well, the chance of leakage is minimal to non-existent. And now I am wearing the proper size brief. Earlier, I stated that a bigger brief is not a better brief because it will leak and gape, and the sloppier fit encourages leakage. With the correct size fitted well, the chance of leakage is minimal to non-existent. Now, on each product, you will find the wetness indicator, and this is helpful to show when the product has been activated. Staff generally change products when the indicator line is a certain percentage full. It is vital to change and complete personal care as soon as possible after a bowel movement. And with the void of urine, the brief draws the fluid away, enabling the individual to wear the product, often for a few voids, or maybe even up to several hours. I've now removed my brief and have it here on the table to demonstrate the new secure grip fasteners that may be newer for some who are used to the older traditional style 4-tab fasteners. These new tabs are now longer and they adhere well to the product, allowing for good conformity to the body. I do like to angle these tabs accordingly based on the wearer's body shape. I may angle the tabs in like so, depending on the body shape. For somebody else, I may angle it the very opposite way, depending how the fit will work for the individual. At times, I may further be more precise in my application by angling the tab partway down, and that allows it to really fit and curve closer to the hip or the waist. Another point I would like to raise to you all is what surrounds Mother's Day or perhaps birthdays, and that is gifting our loved ones with creams or lotions. I have seen some folks, staff generally, do excellent personal care, and then when they apply creams and lotions, it's on very thick, and that can rub off onto the core, inhibiting the absorption of fluid into the core of the product. What I suggest is caregivers put a sparing amount on their loved one or on the person they're caring for. And for caregivers wearing gloves, I suggest that rather than wipe their hands on the core, wipe their hands up in the corner away from any of the power part of the brief where we need that product to do its work and absorb well. Now let's review a few hints and tips. And to review and summarize, there are two main causes of leakage. It is so important that we wear a product that fits. The importance of the tabs fastening on the hips, not on the center panel, can't be overstated. And wearing a product best suited to the type of incontinence, whether it's stress, urge, overflow, functional, or total, is so important. A light pad may no longer contain the gush of fluid experienced with urge incontinence. Or protective underwear is hardly the product of choice for total incontinence. Now, I should mention, too, that double padding is the primary cause of urinary tract infections, UTIs, and skin challenges with respect to incontinence. Double padding means that you have somebody wearing a product, perhaps it's a brief, and then another product is placed within, ideally to increase absorbency. However, this is so well illustrated when it comes to urinary tract infections. When I spoke recently to a family member, the lady I spoke to was a retired registered nurse and her mom was 99. The mom had her first UTI, and that was a few weeks prior to our call. The mother, until recent days, had worn protective underwear very successfully, but as she started to decline, she needed more than protective underwear. However, instead of putting on perhaps a shape pad or even a brief, the caregivers started adding in another pad inside her protective underwear. All that extra warmth, moisture, lack of air movement was far too much for her body. It was very unfortunate that a urinary tract infection was the result. And I should add that if there is double padding happening, the easiest way to remove that inner pad is simply to pull it out. And we are left with shearing, chafing, Skin that is so susceptible then to breakout and breakdown and infection. We have covered a lot of ground in this session, which I trust will prove helpful as you interact with those within your care. Please reach out when questions arise. I should also mention that samples are the best way to determine the correct product based on the presenting need, and I'm happy to discuss these needs and then arrange for samples to be sent. Thank you very much for your time, and once again, I am Ruth Naismith, registered nurse. Thank you.